Well, we all know what this week is. This week we have to run to the Hallmark store real quick, go to Hy-Vee and hit the cards section. We got to run and grab some candy or something of that nature because it's Valentine's week. It's a week that we all take care of what we need to take care of there. And I was thinking about it this last week as we are talking about love outpoured, and we were talking about this idea of loving other people. And we come across Valentine's Day, and today would be a great day to talk to you about this idea of loving and how kind we should be to everyone. But instead, I thought I'd talk about something different this morning. I thought about talking about how to love difficult people. I don't know about you guys, but you remember when you were little kids and you were in elementary school and it was Valentine's week and you all got to make your own Valentine's boxes and be creative with those and you bring them to school. And one of the requirements is that everybody brings a Valentine. And everybody gets a Valentine's card from everybody else in the class. Whether you like them or not, everybody got a card. And so I was sitting there thinking to myself, there's a market that we're missing here with Valentine's Day. Why have I not come up with this before? Why don't we create cards of Valentines to people that we don't really like? You know, people that annoy us, people that we don't really care for too a whole lot, but we feel like we still have to send them a card. It'd be something like this. Dear Valentine, I can't stand the way that you chew with your mouth open, and the way that you laugh drives me crazy, but have a great day. Will you be my Valentine? I mean, it would be great. You could say all the things that you really don't appreciate about him, but then say, but I still love you. Have a great Valentine's Day. And then, see, when I was at school, I could fill out those cards easily. I mean, you put Spider-Man with that or something like that. I mean, that's a sell card right there. As a matter of fact, the truth of the matter is that a lot of times it's a lot harder to love people than it is easier. Sometimes there are some people that are difficult to love. Now, I know this morning that there's no one in here that falls into this. And we are only talking about the people that are not in this room when we talk about difficult people, right? So when we start talking about this, I don't want you looking to your left or looking to your right, nudging your husband. We're not going to do that this morning. We're going to talk about something in a positive way. Now, I don't know if you all knew this or not, but just in the last week or two, it was a special day for those of us who really enjoy athletics and college football and things like that. Last week was signing day. And this is a big day for high school students that are graduating, that are athletes. It's their week that they officially get to commit to what school they're going to go to. And it's a big deal. And over the last several years, it's become kind of a big showcase, especially for some of the really good athletes, that they will have the media come to their school or wherever they're at, or they will shoot out a video onto TikTok or YouTube of them choosing the schools they have. And what they would do is they would lay a table out in front of them, and they would put hats of all the different schools that they really liked that had offered them scholarships. And then they'll sit down there and they'll have all their family behind them, and they'll say, today I'm making my commitment to, and they'll grab one of the hats and they'll put it on, and they'll say, to whatever school. And it's a lot of fun to watch that, and sometimes they play a little trickery or whatever. But I wanted to show you what it is to have a moment when it's hard to love someone.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'm going to be taking my talents to
Bama, baby! Put that down. You don't play.
I'm playing.
You playing on the big dog, baby. You're playing on the big dog. Bama! Bama! Bama!
The Ohio State University.
Bama!
Let's go.
Alabama, yeah! Yeah! Hold on, what do you say now?
The Ohio State University, where I'll be playing for the next 4
I'm
years.
gonna punch you in the throat. I did not work for since you was 10 years old to get you in a private school.
This is where the Lord led me. This is why
the Lord didn't lead you to this decision. Me and the Lord on the same path line. We said Alabama, and that's what we talked about. So put the hat down. He's playing around, coach.
Yeah, sometimes our kids and other people make it very difficult to love them. Here's a moment where the dad has been working since that boy was 10 years old, sending him to private school, putting him into all the different athletic programs, so that he could have this big day that he could go to Alabama. It was his daddy's dream. His dad's dressed up. He's excited about the video. They're going to make this incredible moment. And his son chooses Ohio State. His dad's in the background making a fool of himself, so excited. His dad is already envisioning, I've got season tickets coming my way. I'm going to be there. Me and the coach are going to be hanging out. My son's going to go pro. And the first thing his son does to mess with him is grab Georgia. Now, you know anything about the SEC. Alabama and Georgia are like vinegar and water. It's oil and water. It just does not go together. But then to throw around into a Big Ten school and to watch the father go, no, you are not doing that. That is a moment when it's difficult to love, right? And each one of us, as we go through this, we have moments in our lives where we have people around us that are difficult to love. But my challenge you for this morning is that are the people around us that we call difficult to love really difficult to love, or is it something to do with us that makes it hard for us to love them? See, because each one of us have certain things about us that other people aren't always going to like. We all have things about us that are special, that make us who we are, and each one of us are going to make decisions. It's kind of like sometimes, if you ever notice a newborn baby, everybody loves a newborn baby. Everyone enjoys holding the newborn baby. Everybody enjoys being around the baby. They smell good. They're so cuddly and soft, and they coo, and it's wonderful. And even when they cry, it's not that bad. And then the newborn baby turns 2. And you still love that 2-year-old, but it's difficult sometimes. It's difficult because they don't quite do everything that you thought they would do. They don't act the way they ask you to do. They learn this new word that you don't like to hear, no. They get these legs that like to run. You say, I need you to do this, come here, and they go, really, watch this, and they run the other way. You're going to do this, no, I'm not. You're going to see her, no, I'm not. And you get this frustrating point of where you have an expectation of what you want to have happen, and they're not meeting that expectation. And what happens sometimes, the reason why it's so difficult for us to love people is because we have an expectation. We have a desire that we want to have fulfilled. And sometimes if we are not loving the way that Christ calls for us to love, when we don't receive that, we call those people difficult. As a matter of fact, it kind of wraps up pretty easily in James, and I want to show you this and tie this in together. In James 4, 1 through 3, it says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from the desire that battles within you? You desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask. You don't ask God. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with the wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. Now let's put that into a loving kind of a sequence. What causes arguments between us whenever we're supposed to love each other? Because I don't get what I want. When I don't get what I want, you're difficult. See, because it's easy for me to love the person that does everything that I want it done the way that I want it done. It's easy for me to love the person that always treats me in a certain way, that makes me feel a certain way. It's easy for me to express that love for them. But it's hard for me to love someone and really love a difficult person when there's a great chance that I'm not going to receive that love back. I'm not going to receive that adoration back. I'm not going to receive that thank you, that smile, that hug. Instead, I might not receive anything at all. And so it becomes difficult. And then I ask God, I want to be able to do this. And maybe for some of you all, when you look at your life there, you go, that is a difficult person in my life. And we've been talking so much about this idea of pouring out this love and giving this love and this sacrificial love to people, and understanding that you could pour out and it may not come back to you in the way that you'd hoped. It may not come through the way that you thought that it would. It may be still difficult for you, and we need to understand that really the problem is not so much that they're difficult. Maybe the problem is based on ourselves. See, what if the idea is that loving others is difficult when we base it on me? Philippians 2 says it this way: do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others. One of the biggest keys to being able to love a difficult person is to no longer making it based on me. It's no longer based on what I'm going to receive or what pleasure I'm going to get out of doing this. It's no longer the accolades that I'm going to get because I love that person. See, I don't do it for myself. According to Philippians, I don't do it out of conceit either. I humiliate myself. I bring myself to a lower level, and I love them. I love them above myself. I love them even if they don't say it back. Aurora, my 2-year-old granddaughter, sometimes when she gets in one of her moods, we'll say, I love you, Rory, and she'll say, well, I don't love you. Whoa, ouch. My response to that is, and I still love you anyway. And she'll say, I love you too, Pop-Pop. Because there are some times that we're not going to get the response that we want. We're not going to get the things the way that we want it to be, but does that stop us from loving someone who's being difficult? See, if we are going to love like Christ loves, if we're going to pour out this love that's been given to us, then in those moments, that's when we shine. That's when we truly show people what God's love is all about, is whenever we are not going to get the base return that we are looking for, that we are going to love the person even though they may not want to reciprocate, even though they may still be what people would call difficult to us, even though that they may be some of the things that we are not, even though they may think differently than what we think, even though their actions may drive us crazy because they're not the actions that we would take. Our love can't be based on people's actions. Our love can't be based on people's giving to us. Our love has to be based on something more. See, we follow a Savior who based everything on his love, not on those things, but on the value of the person. See, Jesus, when he came down and he gave his life for us, he didn't look at us and go, well, they're definitely going to love me back the way that I want to be loved. Well, they're definitely going to do all the right things because I love them. It says, in spite of ourselves, even though we were still sinners, even though we were still making mistakes, even though there are many who have never called on his name, he still came out of his love and died for them. Because his love was not based on what he was going to get in return. His love was based on something more. And as we look at this idea of a difficult person, what we need to realize is that our love that God has called for us to have is not based on how easy it is to love them. The other reality is that we can be just as difficult to love. I know you're like, no, not me. I am so easy to love. But the fact of the matter is that each one of us drives somebody else crazy. Now, this is where I told you no nudging. Each one of us do things that other people don't consider to be of high value. Each one of us have traits and make mistakes that others may not care to be around at times. And yet, we are still loved. We need to remember that we are no better than the person that we call difficult. Because believe it or not, there's somebody probably in this room, as you're saying, oh yeah, I know this guy in this room, he's so difficult to love. She's so difficult to love. He's just so this, she's just so that. And as you're sitting there thinking that, there's somebody else in the room that's looking at you saying, boy, he is so difficult to love. We can be just as difficult. Romans 12 says this, for by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourselves more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourselves with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. God calls for us to take a real assessment and a realization that I too am not perfect. I too drive people crazy from time to time. And whenever I start to sit there and place judgment and think of other people of, there's just no way I can love that guy. I can't hardly stand to come to church when I see her. It's so frustrating to be around them at work. And what we need to remember is that we are not that great at times ourselves. And that as much as we come here and desire to be loved, that person comes here also with the same desire, looking for the same thing. And that person that we have such a hard time with was the same person that Christ died for, just like you and I. I also want us to think about this. Loving difficult people is a spiritual-filled action. I don't know if you realize it or not, but that is a spirit-filled action. Look what Galatians says. So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They're in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want. Let's apply that to how we love other people. And think about it just for a minute. Everything in the world tells us to only love the people that are easy to love. Everything tells us that we should go around people that are going to make us feel good, people that are going to make us have a certain kind of emotional response, people that are going to be fun and exciting, people that I get along with all the time, people that have my same interests. And that is a gratification of self. And Jesus tells us that if we follow him, that it's no longer about ourselves. It's about loving others. It's about taking care of others. And so sometimes whenever you find somebody who may be more challenging to love, think about it like this. You loving them is a spiritual act of God. It is you putting yourself away and highlighting God's will. Letting God use you in such a way to transform someone else. More than likely, that person that may be a little bit more challenging to love, one of their biggest desires is to actually be loved. One of the things that I've found over time is so often the person that's so difficult to be loved, they normally are that way because they're doing everything in their power to be loved. And it becomes almost irritating or annoying. And they continue this process over and over again because the world does not love them, because people, for whatever reason, don't openly accept them at the initial point. And so they continually try to do things for people to like them, for people to love them. And over time, whenever that doesn't work out because they're different or because they don't do things the exact way that the majority would like, frustration comes in. And at some point in their lives, what they do is they turn it off because they've come to the resolve that no one is going to accept me. Nobody is going to love me. Nobody is going to want me around. So now my defense mode is to push everyone away, because then I don't have to feel like somebody will love me. Because if I've already resolved that you're not going to love me, then I can act in whatever way I want to protect myself from the pain of knowing that you wouldn't love me. And it's a sad state of mind that some people that are in, that they've come to this resolve that this is my life and I have to live this way to protect myself. And God has called for those people to understand that that is not the way they have to live. That there are a people, and that there are people of God that will love them. That will love them for their uniqueness. That will love them for their idiosyncrasies, for the things that are different than other people, that will embrace them for who they are. Not because of the things that they have or the actions that they've done, but because of the value that God has placed on them through His Son. Everyone deserves to be loved. And once we realize that loving is not about me, it's about God loving them, then everything changes. See, loving difficult people requires a humble heart. We can't come in thinking it's about me anymore. It requires a humble heart. Ephesians 4:2 says, "Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love." And it gives us this clue of what it is to love someone, to come in with a humble heart, a gentle heart, to be patient with those who other people no longer have patience for, to be kind and loving and taking on one another, their burdens, their hardships, the things that are going on with them, their stories that they've said for you for the 20th or the 30th time over and over again, to bear with that and hold on to that and understand that by you listening, by you being there for them, by you walking through their difficulty with them, you are loving them. By you humbling yourself with your time, your energy, your patience, you are loving them. It's hard sometimes to think about that God does that with us the same way. Jesus says it in this way to us: "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and I am humble in heart, and you will find rest in your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Jesus, so clear to us: learn from me. Learn to love the way that I loved. I am gentle and I am humble. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one who rules the universe, looks at us and says, "I am gentle and I am humble." If there was anyone around that had the ability to say, "I get to pick and choose who I want to love, and I have the ability because I am the Lord Almighty," and yet He says, "To you I am gentle and I am humble in heart, and this is how I love." And He says, "Take my yoke. Learn from me. Learn to love like I loved." Yes, it is a burden, but the burden is light. And it's easy once you understand how to love. See, loving a difficult person, like I told you from the beginning, is not difficult if you love like Christ. It's only difficult when we love like the world. It's easy for us to be The dad who says, no, you put that down. That's not what we're doing. This is how you're going to act, and this is how you're going to get my affection and my love. I don't accept that. I'm not going to see what you're doing. I don't care if you said this is the way this is supposed to be. I'm not going to do that. I'm not okay with that. Quit playing around. It's harder to do the other. What would it have looked like if the son, when he picked up the Ohio State hat, his dad said, okay, son, the important thing is that I love you. I support you, and I'm there for you. Takes off his Bama shirt, puts on an Ohio State shirt, team who he couldn't stand, and says, I love you more than things. I love you more than popularity. I love you more than what I choose for myself. I love you. I value you more. I love you more. Several years ago, Becca, who's not here this morning, she was in a band in high school that won the national championship multiple years and had the ability to go play pretty much any university she wanted to go to. And one of the best college bands in our area was Oklahoma State University. And she was looking at seriously going there to play, and you all know that I'm an OU man. And that's almost like bad language. I mean, the only thing worse was she said she was going to try to go to Texas. And she said, Daddy, what are you going to do if I take this scholarship and I go to OSU? And I said, then I will come what you play? I said, I will have a shirt on that says, father of OSU band person, and I will support you all the way. She's like, yeah, but Dad, and I said, I love you. And I said, and then when you graduate, I will burn that shirt, and I'll never wear it again. But I told her, I love you more. This is the kind of love that God wants us to give those who are being difficult. For us to look at them and say, God has loved me so much when I was such a difficult pain for him. When I've sinned and I've messed up, when I've promised him things that I couldn't keep, when I've said things that I wish I'd never said, when I've done things that I've regretted with all my heart, God has still loved me. He's loved me with all of my flaws. And I know I don't do everything that he wishes for me to do, but he still loves me. And you're not a perfect person either, but I love you. I love you because God loved you. And we don't have to get along for any other reason than that. And it's not hard for me to love you because I love you. Not the things that you do, not the things that you wear, and not the places that you go. I love you. And when our world starts to see that as Christians we can love them wholly and completely, then they will start to see this love that we talk about from Jesus. And we know that love transforms people because it transformed me. That incredible love of whenever I wasn't worthy changed who I was. It changed who you are. And it will change others as well. But it doesn't happen until we begin to love the way that Christ loved. This morning as we finish, I want to let you all know that we love you. And then maybe you're sitting here this morning thinking, I needed this sermon because there's some really difficult people in my life. And maybe this morning it's time for you to really actually humble yourself and say, no, Lord, you know what? I just need to tell you, Lord, thank you for loving me, because I'm actually the one who's difficult. I'm the one that have put up false barriers that said that I can't love somebody when it's really me, not them. Lord, help me to open up my eyes to see the value in other people so that I can love them past the things that I don't like, and find joy in loving somebody that I used to think is challenging. We can help you with that this morning, or if you've not ever given your life to Christ and you want to experience this incredible love, will you allow us to help you this morning as we stand and as we sing?